welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the SugarCube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to talk about a free open source game which might be a good source for artwork. So, the name of the game is the Battle For Wesnoth, and you can find it at wesnoth.org. And it is a sort of war game set in a medieval, basically Western European fantasy setting. And if that is the sort of setting that you're interested in, it might be a good source for artwork. So you go to that address. I'll put the link in the description. But you go there and you can get it on itch.io or Steam. There's nothing special or complicated about downloading it. However, once you have downloaded it, if you want to get to the pictures quickly, that is a little bit counterintuitive, because I'm looking at the top of the file system here, and you would probably think, well, I'd go to images, wouldn't I? But actually, no, you don't find most of the interesting artwork in the images folder. You find it in the data folder. So you go to data. You can go to campaigns. There's some interesting ones in there, but most of the interesting ones are in core, C-O-R-E. Again, I'll put this path in the description of the video, but I'll also show you. And then there's two places you might want to go. Well, you go to images, and then the two most useful folders are probably units and portraits. So units has little icons, and I'll show you some examples. As you can see, they're arranged by sort of race or species. And so here we have a whole bunch of little dwarf icons, a dwarf on a griffin, a dwarf with a dwarf lord, I guess he's called, and it's got different pictures for doing an attack and having him move and so on. And similarly, you can say, all right, I'll look at merfolk and let's see what, they've got sort of 4 animations of a sort of tail slap there. And this one's more like a sort of priest or wizard. And so on. And of course, that might be useful for, specific types of games. You also might be interested in the portraits. These are bigger pictures, I think about 400 by 400 pixels. Once again, they're arranged by race or type. So if we go to orcs, for example, we have all these different types of orcs. And then let's say we want to load this one up. And eventually it will load. And that's what it looks like. This particular one is, let's have a look. Okay, 453 by 400 pixels. So that's roughly the size. And again, you can see how that would be useful for, dungeon crawling type of fantasy games. You can also go into, if I go up a bit. Okay, so that's core. Then you can also go into campaigns, and each of these campaigns has its own, once again, images, and then it has its own portraits. And its own units, which are the little sort of icon-looking ones. And because the game is free and open source, that includes the images, and so you can use them freely. You just can't pass them off as copyright to you, right? You can't claim some sort of ownership over them that you don't have. It's a there's not a lot of diversity in the pictures, in the sense that sort of more or less most people are white. Most of the pictures are white. white people. There's a few people who look like Arabs and stuff, but basically you would want this for something that was set in a, in a sort of basically Western European setting with orcs and dragons, I guess, something like Game of Thrones or Middle Earth or something like that. But for what it is, it's quite good, and it is free. So, as I said, I'll put all the links and the paths in the description. But I will leave it there. And of course, you might be interested in the game as well, of course. But I will leave it there for now. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you. And I hope you will tune in next time.